From the return of the controversial auction house to the discovery of what could be the first bugged item in Diablo 2 Resurrected, I'm bringing you the top news from all across Sanctuary today, and I hope you're wearing a prime pair of shitting pants. We're about to put those babies to the test. Do you remember the dreaded and controversial D3 auction house? Then you're gonna love the fact that it's coming back in some form. Blizzard is releasing the WoW companion app, and this is where they plan to bring back this auction house feature. The auction house was a controversial in-game trading hub where players could sell their items to other players for in-game currency or real money. Blizzard released an article about this, and they even go into a bit of detail about the history of this tool. There were times in which individuals would abuse the architecture of the app, often causing a disruption to the player economy and even in some cases causing in-game latency. Smells like a whole bunch of institutional track covering and deflection to me. Would you get Donald Trump to write this fucking thing? I can already tell this whole section is a complete load of shit. Here, let me help you guys out. After Blizzard introduced Inferno mode to Diablo 3, the auction house practically became a necessity for most players. That's because in order to complete Inferno mode effectively, you needed to have the best gear in game. But now, the only place you could find that gear was in Inferno mode. A frustrating conundrum for some players, but an absolute stream of income for others. Some young gamers in their early 20s were paying rent with items that they'd found in Diablo 3, or in other words, living the American dream. But one of the biggest reasons people were complaining about this feature was for its practical necessity in the endgame. But now, if you have a World of Warcraft companion app, you can once again utilize this historic tool of financial feast or famine. This time, however, Blizzard has adjusted how it can be used and has excluded the listing of items on the service. I actually like the idea of an auction house in Diablo games because it gives players some form of affirmation from their in-game accomplishments. While some people are on the other side of this, I think having value associated with items in-game is what keeps games alive for so long. On to some D4 news. Diablo 4 recently released a quarterly update. Here's the TLDR. They announced that there will be 4 seasons to the game throughout the year, with new features, quests, enemies, and items in each one. The quarterly update also eased the minds of some players, claiming that you could not buy power in the game, only cosmetics. The real skill in this game will come from your own dexterity and theory crafting. Most likely. They also mentioned regular expansions for the game, which will both keep it interesting and also allow them to monetize the game in a more acceptable way for their traditional player base. They ended by saying, "We're grateful to have you with us on this journey. Thank you for playing the games we make." You're welcome, Joe. They go on to mention a season pass, which will have different tiers associated with it. While some players are still confused as to what this means, my take on it is that if you want to play in any of the 4 seasons in D4 throughout the year, you'll need to pay for that battle pass. Otherwise, you can play on the Eternal Realm. It's likely that it'll be easier to level your character in a season game versus the Eternal Realm, so this seems like it could be the way that they might encourage players to buy the pass. In all seriousness, this game seems like it has the groundwork laid out for it to be a cult classic and constant revenue source for Blizzard Entertainment. Personally, I'm a big fan of free trade and hope that that finds its way into the game. On to some Diablo 2 Resurrected news. You ever feel like there's too much violence in video games these days, corrupting our kids and dividing our nation? Neither do I. But MacroBioBoi recently took a stand and completed a world record speedrun that was only theorized to be possible before. He completed Hell difficulty without attacking a single monster in-game, also known as the Pacifist run. He put out a condensed version of the explanation of the run, which I've linked down in the description. You too can pull off such a thing. All you need is a deep well of D2 historical knowledge and 50 hours of time. Thank God for that condensed version. If you ever thought you had a hard time getting through this game, I would highly suggest checking out his video and seeing what he did. In other D2R news, the first bugged item might have been found on Battle.net. The owner of the item allowed me to personally check it out as long as I introduced him as the fastest Javazon on this side of the Mississippi. He didn't actually appear to be on a Javazon. And I also don't really know which side of the Mississippi he resides on. A friend, of course, submitted this odd-looking amulet to the trophy room in Discord. In what can only be considered a professional act of D2 investigative journalism, I tracked the owner down in-game. Although he was reluctant to lend it to me at first, which, with the history of this game, I really don't blame him. He eventually did let me hold on to it and test it on my character. He did this so that I could join my own games that I created and really make sure that there wasn't any junk fuckery going on. And much to my surprise, there wasn't. There appears to be a glitch with this specific amulet or with these specific attributes spawning on an item. For whatever reason, when you try to link this in chat, it does some really trippy things. The item switches back and forth between different versions of itself, claiming to have unobtainable abilities on the item. In fact, these abilities changed right in front of us in-game. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem as though these attributes are actually applied to your character when you put the item on, but it does make you wonder what's going on, and if this can be broken. Although there's not much official news in D2R in recent history, we did get something in recent news from Pez Radar himself. He posted in response on a Blizz forum recently and said, "Fear not, we are hoping to share some news about PTR next week. A bit late, I know, and a bit outside of our windows we were aiming for with latter seasons, but the team is working on a feature that they would like to test in PTR that is pretty big. And they want to make sure that they can get an accurate feedback on it before it goes live in the PTR. With all of the recent demand for currency tabs and people complaining about stash space, I wouldn't be surprised if the thing that they're testing is something that PD2 has done for 5 seasons now, and that is stacking runes and gems. As a player who really appreciates the love and attention that this team gives to Diablo 2 Resurrected, I will say that whatever big change is on the horizon, I'm going to be pretty excited to see it. And those are the top stories from across Sanctuary this week. Make sure to leave a like on this video if you've made it this far, and subscribe if you like this kind of content. And if you don't, fuck you.